Welcome to the first episode of What is Happening in Brazil of 2020. This is the second and final installment of our year-end special, showing you all the highlights of 2019. Come with us. This year, unfortunately, we have seen many setbacks after the election and inauguration of the far-right president Jair Bolsonaro. Some of the worst impacts were on culture and education policies, with the budget cuts, attacks against public universities and scientific research, and censorship.
Brazil's national cultural policy was one of the most impacted areas in President Jair Bolsonaro's first year in office, pushing a conservative and authoritarian agenda. Reports of censorship, which the Constitution expressly prohibits, have piled up in 2019. The former Secretary of Culture, José Henrique Pires, resigned in August after his office canceled a bidding process for public TV channels to produce LGBT-themed shows. He accused the government of imposing censorship on the arts.
If you create a state where there is an expectation of censorship, a byproduct emerges from that. And it's just as bad as censorship itself. It is self-censorship. People think 10 times before they present something, because eventually someone could censor them. That should not happen. There should be complete freedom of expression, which is what the Constitution guarantees.
Before that, Bolsonaro had attacked applications for gender and sexuality-related projects, even though all of them had passed to the final stage of the bid. The president unapologetically told journalists that he would like to use filters in the federal film funding agency, Ancine.
Yes, we are going to use filters. If we can't do that, we will shut Ancine down.
Another episode of censorship involved Banco do Brasil, the country's largest bank, which is controlled by the Brazilian government. The bank's CEO fired a director and took down an ad campaign that targeted young demographics and had actors portraying racial and sexual diversity. The order came from Bolsonaro himself.
The commercial portrayed the reality of our people. The president and the government have to understand that they have a people, and it's diverse. That diversity must be respected.
What all episodes of censorship have in common is that they are about topics that upset the president's followers, especially when the topics are related to LGBT people or criticism against the military regime that ruled the country between 1964 and 1985. Not only culture, but the country's education policy has also been extremely affected by the Bolsonaro administration in 2019. The budget cuts introduced by the Education Ministry have seriously impacted fellowships, hurting scientific development in Brazil, as well as the lives of researchers.
Here at the University of São Paulo, we see that education is eroding. It seems like the Ministry of Education has a plan to pull the plug on scientific research in Brazil's public universities.
Brazil's two major research funding agencies called CAPES and CNPq struggled with budget cuts in 2019. The setbacks suffered could have been even more severe if it weren't for students, professors, and society at large who took to the streets and held major demonstrations against the budget cuts.
We give back to society what society pays in taxes to fund our research. We work for the social well-being, not for private industries.
Education cannot be a right-wing or a left-wing agenda. It must be the country's agenda. Society must understand that this is what we are. We are part of it.
Social movements have organized their struggle to fight the setbacks promoted by the Jair Bolsonaro government. And they struggle hard. Some of the policies the government tried to push were reversed thanks to the pressure of people's movements.
The indigenous movement withstood serious attacks throughout the year 2019. They have faced the lack of demarcation of lands and strikes against their territories. But the streets showed that, as indigenous communities organized to stand up for the common good, overcoming setbacks and celebrating the culture and identity of a people is possible.
Indigenous peoples have been united for a long time because we are all about collectivity. We always converge. For example, the Shukuru people had a powwow this year. They invited several indigenous peoples to participate, where we discussed all kinds of things that work out, things that didn't. We talk about our plans, our next strategies, and we feel that the strength from other ethnic groups is brought together and makes us stronger too.
It's not just indigenous peoples who struggled in Brazil's countryside. Peasants also fought fierce battles against setbacks. But there were also headways in different areas. The Landless Workers Movement, the MST, promoted the political and theoretical education of new cadres and is laying the groundwork for the future struggle against the acts of brutality that peasants and rural workers are exposed to.
A people's land reform is about land, but it's also a set of other things that bring back human dignity. We have moved forward and have had students graduated from law school in the state of Paraná. We were able to make progress with the MST communication, with political and ideological education. The Florestan Fernandes National School is world-renowned, and it offers education to the people from all over the world. This means that we are building a process. Of course, it's not to put up a full-fledged struggle right now, because maybe this is not the time. Bolsonarism is actually wearing itself down, but it still enjoys the support of those with guns in their hands. And this process of wearing itself down, it's clear that we will have to solve Brazil's issues through conflict. There is no way around it. But it's not up to them to decide that. It's up to us, the working class, to decide when it's time for battle.
The movements that fight for Black people's rights took to the streets in November to celebrate their culture and knowledge, but also to express their outrage at the genocidal policy of the Brazilian state. They showed how strong they are as they come together to fight the setbacks.
It's important to carry the flag of the fight against racism, especially in a government that is purposely racist and violent, more violent than previous governments. So we are here fighting, and we are together.
Being here is important, as it is our struggle to enter university, to stay in university. Our struggle is not to be incarcerated. Our struggle is for housing. Our struggle is for land. They kill us, but when we bleed, we are seeds. And there are many ways to fight back. This is one of the first ways. They were not able to make us a minority. This is the only country in the world outside the African continent where they were not able to do that.
That is it for our 2019 year-end special. Next week, we will be back with our regular programming. I see you then.